All right, we're here today for a deck tech with Bant tokens, kind of on the ending note of this awesome Battle for Zendikar Oath of the Gatewatch standard. And despite the fact that the format is almost over and Shadows of Innistrad is kind of starting to enter preview season, the decks in the standard format just keep evolving. And I think that it's kind of proved that you can almost just do whatever you want. And it's been an awesome standard format. And this deck kind of reflects that. Even though Andy Ferguson's Bant Company deck is kind of the go-to Bant strategy right now, like Collected Company and Jace Friends Prodigy are by far some of the most powerful cards in the format. This deck is able to utilize those colors and kind of a similar curve of creatures without actually playing Jace or Collected Company. Instead, they're able to leverage Nissa Voice of Zendikar and kind of the sort of forgotten now Gideon Ally of Zendikar.
Yeah, Gideon has dropped off recently, but this deck definitely makes good use of it.
Yeah. People have kind of come to respect Nissa Voice of Zendikar. It started in like Atarkarud sideboards, and recently we've seen it in Hardened Scales decks, and I think Nissa is just going to be a staple of, well, I guess the last end of this part of the format, but also Shadows of Innistrad.
Yeah.
Kind of starting with our curve of creatures, it's basically just the most efficient stuff. We have Hangerback Walker, which is just a good blocker, produces some tokens, powerful card, seen play, tons of different decks over the 10-year standard. Sylvan Advocate, very respected now, 2/3 vigilance, can holds the ground, plays offense and defense, becomes a really potent threat later in the game. Reflector Mage, best card in Oath of the Gatewatch for standard.
Yeah, easily the best one.
Yeah, this card's just messed up. And then Eldrazi Sky Spawner has started to see a little bit of fringe play. I think Brad Nelson was probably the first person to popularize it alongside Wingmate Rock and Bant Company. And I wanted to kind of utilize that synergy here. It makes two bodies. It curves really nicely on turn 4. You can attack with your Sky Spawner, enable raid, and then sacrifice a sign to play a Wingmate Rock ahead of schedule.
We also saw this combination in Esper Walker's decks.
Yep.
Towards the end of the fall into December.
And then it's, again, just two bodies that synergize really well with Nissa's and Gideon's kind of anthem effects. And then Oath of Nissa is kind of the core of the deck. It allows you to fix your mana. It allows you to curve out nicely. You can find a 2-drop when you need it, find a Reflector Mage or Eldrazi Sky Spawner, and it also is able to find one of your powerful Planeswalkers. So it kind of does everything in that it both gets your creatures and your ways to pump your creatures.
Anytime your deck is dependent on a lot of little internal synergies, having some high-velocity spell to dig through your deck and make sure you have all the right pieces and the right quantities and the right ratios is really important.
Definitely important. And also, I think an underrated aspect of Oath of Nissa, even though this deck's mana base is quite stable, the fact that it allows you to play Nissa on turn 3 and Gideon on turn 4 every time is something that you can't really understate because they are double casting cost cards.
Yeah, I could definitely see times where in order to curve these together especially, you need to play your lands awkwardly, and you won't have the right mana to play them, or you'll have to play an enters the battlefield tap land, and so you won't be able to do it, and then Oath allows you to do that.
Yep.
And another small edge.
The supporting cast is kind of standard fare. Silk Wrap is just a good removal spell, especially against Jace Friends Prodigy. Valorous Stance is a nice answer to Anafenza, Siege Rhino, various Abzan cards. It can bust open your Hangerback Walker, which is something that is actually pretty powerful in this deck because of the anthems. And then Secure the Waste kind of gives this deck more of like a combo finish feel. Like it's a very traditional mid-range deck on the surface, but you can go from having absolutely no board position, you can be flooding out late in the game, you can cast a Secure the Waste on your opponent's end step for 5, 6, 7, untap, play an Anthem, and your opponent just dies. And that's something like, especially Eldrazi ramp, very difficult for them to play around that kind of sequence. And it gives this deck a powerful punch. As far as the mana base is concerned, pretty straightforward. Just the tail end of the fetch Battleland mana base, and this is just same old, same old.
I can't
You
wait.
excited?
I'm very excited for getting fetchlands out of here.
Yeah, I'm not gonna have to play super fast, so I don't time out.
Not gonna have carpal tunnel.
Not gonna have Yeah, my wrists are killing me. And magic stuff. Lumbering Falls, creature land, mana fixer, great with Sylvan Advocate, pretty straightforward. Got the one Yavimaya Coast to give the deck an extra early green source for Oath of Nissa and also help it cast our blue spells. Not too much to write home about.
Yeah. I think that this deck seems very reminiscent of what Sam Black built for Pro Tour Battle for Zendikar.
Yep, for
Bant
sure.
Tokens deck. And I think it's interesting to note that I think I think Sam's version of the deck only had 1 or 2 Lumbering Falls, but with the addition of Sylvan Advocate, Lumbering Falls becomes that much better, so you want to see more copies of that in the deck.
Right. His deck was also very, like, green-white splash blue, but
Yeah.
now that we have Reflector Mage, there's just no reason not to lean heavily on the blue.
Yeah.
All right, and you can join us for the sideboard in just a moment. All right, back here for the sideboard of Bant tokens. Nothing too special here. It's kind of just the stuff we're used to seeing at this point. Disdainful Stroke is a nice card against ramp, Abzan decks, even like the Mardu Green with Kalita Siege Rhino, Goblin Dark Dwellers. Those are all nice targets for Disdainful Stroke. It hits like the most high impact cards in the majority of matchups. Dispel, just nice tool for fighting like Jeskai Black, Rally the Ancestors, Collected Company decks. You've seen it at this point.
Yep.
Is what it is. Valorous Stance, again, nice removal spell for Abzan stuff. Roshan Cleric, nice body against red decks. Planar Outburst gives this deck, like, it would really help kind of facilitate the combo finish I talked about against creature decks. You can play more of a slow controlling game, pace yourself, get your Hangerback Walker going, Planar Outburst the board, get a few Thopters, remain at parity with your opponent, and then eventually you secure the waste combo, kill them. Just a nice cohesive plan that this deck can execute post-board. Den Protector gives it a little bit more resilience. You can kind of incorporate this Megamorph package, especially when you're boarding in cheaper disruption like Dispels and Disdainful Strokes. You can have Stratus Dancers and Den Protectors as a means to fight Rally the Ancestors and other heavy instant decks. Just lets you pace the game appropriately, where you can be leaving up these powerful Megamorph cards, your counter spells, and secure the waste simultaneously. It's really difficult for your opponent to play around everything.
Yeah, and in a deck like this, these cards are really functioning as spells, but this deck, with all the Anthem effects, just takes such good advantage of bodies just lying around the battlefield, and so getting a body on the back end with your effect that you're playing the card for is really nice.
It's also just important to have, like, if you draw a bunch of these kinds of effects, you can just play these guys on turn 2 as creatures and start pressuring your opponent while leaving up your disruptive elements. So.
Yep.
All right, nothing too exciting here. So I guess join us for Ross Merriam's Deck Tech with Green-Black Elves.